Nearly 24 Americans have won the Nobel Peace Prize, including presidents, a vice president, and a secretary of state. Today, we highlight 10 distinguished individuals who have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. These recipients left a lasting impact on American history, inspiring change and progress through their courageous actions, groundbreaking contributions, and visionary leadership. Nicholas Murray Butler in 1931. In the early 1900s, Nicholas Murray Butler was a man whose voice carried into the halls of world leaders. He studied in Europe, made friends with presidents and kings, and became president of Columbia University in 1902. Butler believed peace could be protected by strong laws between nations. He worked to support the International Court at The Hague and built close ties with leaders in Europe. As head of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, he helped make the 1928 Briand-Kellogg Pact possible, a promise between countries to reject wars of aggression. In 1931, Butler received the Nobel Peace Prize for his dedication for strengthening international law. His life showed that ideas, when shared across borders, could shape the path toward peace. Elie Wiesel in 1986. In 1986, the world turned its eyes to a man who had spent his life telling a story that could never be forgotten. His name was Elie Wiesel, and his voice carried the weight of millions who could no longer speak. Born in Romania in 1928, Elie was only a boy when he was taken to Auschwitz during World War II. There he lost his mother, father, and little sister. The pain he carried became the fire that shaped his life's mission. Years later, Elie used his words to fight against hate and remind people of the dangers of staying silent. His books, speeches, and actions all called on the world to care for each other and defend human dignity. On October 14, 1986, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Committee honored him for making it his life's work to bear witness to the Holocaust and speak for victims of injustice everywhere. After receiving the prize, Elie created the Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity, making sure the lessons of the past would help guide a kinder, braver future. Henry A. Kissinger in 1973. Next up, in 1973, the Nobel Peace Prize made headlines around the world for an unexpected reason. That year, the honor went to U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and Lee Juk-tho of North Vietnam. The award was for their work in the Paris Peace Accords, a set of agreements meant to end the long and painful Vietnam War. The deal promised that U.S. troops would leave Vietnam, fighting would stop, and peace would return. But things did not go smoothly. Lee Juk-tho refused the prize, saying peace had not truly been achieved. Henry Kissinger accepted it, though not in person, worried about protests. Later, he even offered to return it, but the Nobel Committee said no. The war, sadly, restarted before the last American soldiers left, and many said the peace agreement had failed. Even with its controversy, the award marked a major moment in history. It showed the world that peace talks could change the course of nations, even if the results were not perfect. And it placed Henry Kissinger among America's most famous Nobel Prize winners. Norman E. Borlaug in 1970. Norman Borlaug was a scientist whose work forever changed how the world grows food. Born in Iowa, he studied plants and diseases, earning his doctorate in plant pathology. He traveled to Mexico to help farmers who were struggling to grow enough wheat to feed their people. In the 1970s, when many feared hunger would sweep across the world, his discoveries brought hope to millions. Through years of research, Borlaug developed new kinds of wheat that could resist disease and grow in different climates. These stronger crops produced far more grain than before, and soon Mexico no longer needed to import wheat. His methods spread to India, Pakistan, and other nations facing food shortages, sparking what became known as the Green Revolution. In 1970, Borlaug received the Nobel Peace Prize for his fight against hunger. The Nobel Committee praised him for giving the world a breathing space to solve population and poverty challenges. Even after retirement, Borlaug continued teaching and inspiring others, believing that food was the first step toward peace. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in 1964. Now let's talk about early 60s. In 1964, the world watched as a young minister from Atlanta stepped onto the global stage. His name was Martin Luther King Jr., and his dream was for an America where every person was treated equally. At only 35 years old, he became the youngest person to ever win the Nobel Peace Prize. King believed in change through peace, not violence. Inspired by the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, he led marches, gave speeches, and organized protests that challenged unfair laws in the segregated South. His leadership helped bring about the Civil Rights Act, ending legal segregation in public places, in the 24th Amendment, which banned poll taxes that kept many African Americans from voting. When King accepted the Nobel Prize, he donated all the prize money to the civil rights movement, showing his cause mattered more than personal gain. In his final years, he spoke out against poverty and war, hoping to lift up all people in need. Though his life was cut short in 1968, his voice still echoes as a call for justice and compassion. Linus Pauling in 1962. In the early 1960s, the world was living under the shadow of the Cold War, and the threat of nuclear weapons loomed over every nation. One American scientist, Linus Pauling, decided he could not stay silent. Already famous for winning the 1954 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, Pauling turned his attention to speaking out against the dangerous race to build more and more powerful weapons. In 1962, the Nobel Committee chose him for the Nobel Peace Prize, honoring his courage in challenging leaders to end nuclear testing and find peaceful solutions. However, no award was given that year because the committee felt no nominee fully met Alfred Nobel's requirements. Following the rules, they held Pauling's award until the next year, finally presenting it to him in 1963. This second Nobel Prize made history. Pauling became the only person to win 2 undivided Nobel Prizes in different fields. His work showed that science and peace could walk hand in hand, and his voice inspired countless people to believe that a safer, more peaceful world was worth fighting for. George Catlett Marshall in 1953. In the years after World War II, much of Europe lay in ruins. Cities were destroyed, families were struggling, and economies were broken. One man, General George Catlett Marshall, believed the best path to peace was helping nations rebuild. As U.S. Secretary of State, he proposed a bold plan to send food, money, and resources to European countries so they could recover and stand strong again. This idea became known as the Marshall Plan, and it changed the future of Europe. Factories restarted, trade returned, and hope grew where there had been despair. The plan not only helped rebuild economies, but also built trust among nations that had once been enemies. In 1953, George Marshall became the only Army general ever to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. The award honored his vision that peace comes not only from ending wars, but from giving people the tools to live better lives. His work proved that leadership on the battlefield could also be leadership in rebuilding the world, showing that generosity and cooperation can be powerful forces for peace. Ralph Bunche in 1950. Ralph Bunche made history as the first African American to win the Nobel Peace Prize. A Harvard professor and United Nations diplomat, he was chosen to help end a dangerous conflict in the Middle East. He received the award in 1950 believing every problem between people could be solved without war. In 1948, war had broken out between Arabs and Israelis after the creation of the State of Israel. As acting mediator for the United Nations, Bunche worked tirelessly to bring the two sides together. Through long talks, careful listening, and endless patience, he helped negotiate a ceasefire that stopped the fighting. But that's not all. Bunche often said he was an incurable optimist. He believed peace was always possible if people were willing to keep trying. When he received the Nobel Prize, the committee praised his faith in human goodness and his refusal to give in to hate or prejudice. His life's work reminded the world that hope, respect, and understanding could be stronger than any weapon. Elie Greene Balch in 1946. By the time Elie Greene Balch was 79 years old, she had spent her entire life speaking out for peace. A professor of history and sociology, she believed wars could be prevented if nations chose understanding over violence. Her passion led her to work with the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, where she served as its international president. During World War I, Balch joined Jane Addams in urging neutral countries to help end the fighting. Later in the 1930s, she warned about the dangers of Hitler and Mussolini, calling for action before their power spread further. Her pacifist views made her unpopular with her own government, which saw her as too radical. In 1946, Elie Greene Balch was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless fight against war and her dedication to disarmament. Though she received no praise from President Truman, her work left a legacy of courage, conviction, and hope for a more peaceful world. John Raleigh Mott in 1946. Finally, in the years after World War II, the world was desperate for healing and unity. Among those who worked tirelessly for this was John Raleigh Mott, a man whose mission stretched far beyond his home country. From his days as a student, Mott felt a calling to bring people together through faith and understanding. As leader of the YMCA and chair of the International Missionary Council, he built a worldwide network where people of different nations could meet, learn, and work toward peace. During both World Wars, he organized YMCA aid for prisoners, making sure they had comfort and hope even in the darkest times. On top of that, in 1946, Mott was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for creating a peace-promoting Christian brotherhood across borders. He also spoke out against racial discrimination and the mistreatment of colonized peoples. His life's work was a reminder that friendship, respect, and compassion can bridge even the widest divides. That's our look at some of America's most inspiring Nobel Prize winners. Which one amazed you the most? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.